and welcome back to DML. So today I wanted to go through the potential stats of all of the new divines that we're getting in the upcoming Trials of Odin divine event. And obviously, we already know that Freyja is the equivalent of Hathor, being the super exception divine that everyone's gonna want and is the hardest to get from the whole event. But obviously, between now and Monday, since this info isn't officially announced, this could change between now and then. But, you know, considering all of the other leaked images and everything else being correct, I'd say the likelihood of this being true is probably quite high. So, this is the table here that displays all 6 of the new divines, and it basically goes from strongest to weakest, almost, in this listing. Not quite, but sort of. And the main one that I want to talk about, of course, is Freyja. Because we talked about the Hathor Dragon quite a lot, and, you know, I despise the exception divines, along with quite a lot of people, along with the way that you get them. But Freyja in particular is quite, let's say, problematic in a sense, because she is a divine, plan, and wind dragon. Base attack of 89, and a base health of 288. And, you know, just looking at those numbers, you might be, well, what does that mean, Quacks? Well, the point is, just like with Hathor, if you look at the other stats of some of these other dragons, let's take Thor, for example. He's a divine, energy, and metal. Base attack of 77, base health of 251, and then, say, the Heimdall, base attack 79, base health 242. Even though the attack on Freyja is still much higher than these other dragons, the main thing is the health on this dragon, because Freyja is obviously quite aggressive because she has plan, and that's the main thing that people are going to be using on her because of her attack stat. But she's so incredibly survivable because of all that extra health. So if you want to compare it to the Hathor Dragon, for example, has the same health stat as Freyja. So he would have 367 billion health, if you can see that number down there. Maybe it'd help if I zoom in a little bit more here on this table. So, this is the table right here on the right that we're looking at. 367 billion health, 112 billion damage, which is quite a lot, of course. And that is base, remember. So, the Freyja Dragon is going to have 367 billion health, whereas the Hermes Dragon, which has the same elements as Freyja, but isn't an exception, this little guy over here is only going to have 316 billion health and 98 billion damage. Again, that is at level 100, fully enchanted. So, comparing these two, 316 billion to 367 billion, might not seem like too much of a difference, but when we're talking about these dragons fighting one-on-one or 3v3 in the arena and the enchantment league, having an extra 50 billion health is a lot. It is an enormous amount to have to get through. And, you know, it's the same thing with Odin here. You know, he has 86 base attack, 245 base health, which is just an outright replacement to the Chang Dragon here. Because the Chang has 228 health base and 85 attack. So she'd have 290 billion health, but the Odin has a significant amount extra. So, the main problem with these new divines is the same thing as with the previous divine event. It's just these exception dragons that keep coming out. Like, you remember the other exceptions that we got, like the, what's it called, the laser dragon? How he has really, really low health as an exception dragon for some reason, maybe to compensate for his stats. But these divines here, they have no downside. There is nothing bad. Like, why would you ever use a Hermes Dragon ever again? There's no reason to. Like, just using him on a team, now you know that there's just a Freyja Dragon out there that's gonna beat him every single time. I mean, obviously we have the addition of Dragon Fury potions and clan powers, but having to use them purely on the basis that we just have these new divines, which are super duper extra overpowered, when the Hermes Dragon himself was supposed to be a super strong divine, never before seen limited time dragon in the first place. Everything is just getting replaced by their own counterparts with the same elements, but they're just better in every conceivable way. So, these are all of them. All 6 of them, and all of their stats presented. And obviously you can compare them to dragons that have the same elements or similar elements and work out which one you want to use on your team. But how do you beat someone that has an Odin, Freyja, and Hathor dragon? How do you beat someone with a team like that as just a normal player? Even though you can use, you know, your bonus like training and your clan powers and your Dragon Fury, can you even beat a team like that with most dragons, even with some of those bonuses? Like, mate, let's assume you can't use Dragon Fury, for example, and you've just got training and clan power to use, and say you have one epic on your team. You're never gonna win. You're never gonna beat a team like this in the arena. And, you know, I think that is the main gripe that I have, especially with this game now. Loki looks so cool, but compared to some of the others, I mean, 81 Shadow and Plan is still insanely good. Like, he's basically an autumn dragon, but compared to the others that we have, I mean, how can he compare to Freyja? It's just insane. So even though some of these other dragons are super good, and we're going to get another autumn replacement in the game, which is sort of annoying, but at the same time, I don't even care too much. It's just so aggravating. Like, we invest so much time and effort into building a team, and every single update, we're having to replace it with a new one. Unless you just don't care, and then it's like, yeah, well, just accept that your team's gonna be worse. It doesn't mean that it feels any better, if you know what I mean. It's just so annoying to me, and it's not just me that feels this way. I've spoken to so many different people and players that have dropped off from the game completely, because at this point, it's obvious the exceptions aren't going to stop. If the exceptions were exceptions where they had an insane amount of health or attack, but they lost it on the other element quite severely, we wouldn't care, because, you know, give and take some. But these exceptions are just, you have a super, like, massive amount of attack and a super massive amount of health. There is no downside to them. If you decide to pay to win and spend thousands of dollars potentially, you're just better than everyone else. And that's something that I personally hope the game would never ever get to in terms of the dragons itself, but they're going more and more in that direction. So, I mean, you make your own choice on whether you agree with it, whether you want to keep playing or not, but my little Hermes Dragon is destroyed. The only reason I'm holding on to him is because I feel bad for him. I feel pity in his poor, defenseless little eyes, because he cannot do anything as good as his counterparts anymore. Like, don't get me wrong, Joker, you're still better than a lot of the dragons in this game, but you're just not holding up anymore, man. I mean, Freyja would be lovely to get, of course, but she's very difficult to get for free, as in near impossible to get for free. But that is the way that the game is going, so, you know, I do have a problem with the game and the way that it is. That's just how the cookie crumbles in this situation, I'm afraid. And also, we do have the new black market deals, in case you hadn't already seen, and admittedly, a couple of these deals really aren't too bad. For example, we've got some nestled eggs. If you want some, they're 10,000 food, which is not a lot. I'd buy some if I wanted them. We have VIP tickets for 15 portal gems, and I think this is really worth it, because at the moment we have a ton of extra portal gems, and VIP tickets, especially during, you know, VIP special weekend events and during castle events, are really, really useful. So I'm going to buy them. You can buy 5 million food for 200 gems, which is an awful garbage deal. Then we can get enchantment tickets for 100,000 food. This is a really worth it deal because enchantment tickets are hard to come by, so they're really worth purchasing. And then finally, we have this bundle for 25 scrolls and 7 extraordinary divine materials. So essentially you would be paying 200 gems for 14 divine materials. And 200 gems is the equivalent of base price around £6. It's very expensive. Unless obviously you buy the clam subscription where it's quite a lot cheaper, but you still have to buy the clam to do it. So I would be very tempted to take this deal because we would be able to enchant Joko then, but it's still quite a pricey deal if you put everything into perspective. But if you do have the gems, I would probably recommend you do it just to make it easier to enchant stuff, because you know everyone's probably got a divine or two sitting around unless you weren't around for the previous divine event. So whenever you see deals like that, they're really not too bad to invest in. It's just now we have Saini, who was replaced by the Ra Dragon. Rest in peace, poor Saini. We have our Hermes Dragon, which has been utterly replaced by Freyja. Rest in peace, his poor soul. Then we have our Autumn Dragon, who was replaced by Seth, and now he's been replaced by Loki as well. Rest in peace, his poor soul. So who do we have left? We have our Archangel Dragon, but there's a better version of him to do his job in a divine version. So, it's like myself, who has been playing DML for over 3.5 years now. Obviously, I'm not that dedicated of a player. Like, I don't come on the game and do like 50, 60 fights a day. I just can't be bothered. I'm not a super dedicated player like a lot of people are, and I really have not spent in DML in a long time. Like, I've spent the little bits of donations that have been sent in and people ask me to add VIP or, you know, the second breeding den for the sake of videos, and that's like it. And as someone that's mostly free to play now, even though I do obviously get the benefits of VIP when I have VIP tickets on, which I will admit is very useful, but again, as a mostly free to play player now, my team is just nowhere near as good as other people that decided to spend an awful lot of money on the game, or that just got insanely lucky in both divine chests. And plus, if you want to get Odin, which is a better version of the Chang Dragon, then obviously the Chang cost a lot of money to get in the past as well when she's been replaced. It's just an endless cycle of replace your team every few months that there's a divine event, otherwise your team is suboptimal. Whereas before, the way that it used to be was get lucky breeding this dragon or win them in the special event and, you know, put together some sort of concoction of whatever you choose. And at the end of the day, all the dragon's stats were quite similar. So even if you were trying to be optimal, or as optimal as you could be, it didn't matter anywhere near as much as it does now. Because, again, say you take the Tai Zenran, for example. A lot of people put him on their teams because he was a better version of the Sumo Dragon, but his stats were really similar to the other dragons that we had. Obviously, he was still better, but not by much. And even that caused everyone to go into a panic, replace all their teams, change how they do everything, understandably. But now we have these exception divines that are coming out every couple of months now, which are just causing everyone to just look at their teams and go, you know what, I don't care anymore. I don't care about being good anymore. I don't care about wanting to try. And is that really the mindset that we want to be putting into people? Seriously? Like, is the way to keep people playing to force them to go, I don't care about these parts of the game anymore because I can't compete in them? I think that's like the opposite. of what a goal should be by a game developer to do if they want to keep player retention, for example. Because eventually when you get to a point where you realize you have no chance of competing with any of these pay-to-win players, people become bored really easily. And people start to look at the game very negatively, for one reason or another. Like, you know, the RNG with breeding can be annoying. The RNG with chain breeding in particular is not good. And then there's all of these other parts of the game that we also can't participate in now, like the arena, for example, because we cannot beat their dragons. We will not be able to beat a team of Freyjas and Hathors and Odins. Like, a lot of teams just cannot deal with that, no matter what they do, unless you use Dragon Fury every single turn, and Dragon Fury is very annoying to come by. But the more of these special exception divine events that come out, more of the pay-to-win players will invest in them. And we will see more teams like that. Which means that all the free-to-play players are going to have a much harder time. Or even if you're only partially paying, like you'll pay for VIP and you'll pay for a second breeding den for the breeding quests, but you're not going to be willing to spend for the divine chest, for example. It's just really, really aggravating, and I think it's the opposite direction of the way that I personally think the game should have taken if it wanted to keep its survivability. And I mean, people predicted this a long time ago. They were like, oh, the game's going more pay to win, it's gonna die, everything's going bad and pear-shaped. And back then, obviously their concerns had warrant, but I think it was a little bit more overreaction to some of the things that they were complaining about. Whereas when Exception Divines came out, I could understand it. Like, I'm not saying that I predicted that the game would suddenly go super free to play and it would turn out like a competitive game like CSGO or something. I'm not saying that, but I really did have hope that something as ridiculous as Exception Dragons would not become a thing. Because at this point, it's just, the richer you are, the more skillful, air quotes, you are. Because let's be honest, in DML, skill means nothing, knowledge means nothing, because when you have a team of Freyja, Odin, and Hathor, you don't need any of that. You just go, shadow, dead, plant, dead, and that's it. Everything dies in front of you. There's no thought, there's no care, and no one could do anything about it, because you've spent all the money that you need to fully enchant them, you're way ahead, and you have like billions and billions of food extra compared to other people. You'll never not be the top player, or close to it in the game. So what does everyone else do? Like, there's people that try and compete in the weekend events, and they can never ever compete. And especially with the hatching events now that there are 5 slots to this hatchery, which cost like $100 overall just to get the last 2 upgrades, it's going to be even more pay to win in the hatching events as well. Because if you have 5 hatchery slots, you just go into your inventory, pick out all the epics, you hatch them, or you go and try and breed the laser 8 times, gem through it, pop them in the hatchery, there you go, done. But, you know, it is DML. I don't expect it to be a perfect game. I don't expect it to be a non-pay-to-win game, because that's how it's always been. But I'm just simply pointing out my own personal opinions on the way that the game's been, and just the way that Exception Divines and that make myself and other people that I've spoken to actually feel as a player. I don't know. Again, it's just me. You don't have to agree, you can disagree, and that is fine. We are all open to our own interpretations. I just feel bad for Joko here. I feel so bad for him. And this screen has changed, by the way, again. Every single time the screen changes. Every time I look at it, I swear. But anyway, guys, I think that is enough rambling and ranting for today. Enjoy whatever you can with the new Divines, and let me know what you think about them. Until next time, I'll see you then.